welcome to NewsNation. Two things can be true at the same time. The CEO assassin is part of the problem in our society, privileged and looking for a cause that is not part of his lived experience, but there's something else that's true. The healthcare system is widely feared and reviled, specifically the insurance side. Now, we struggle with this. Why? Because in our social media culture, everything's got to be 100-0. Everything's a gotcha. Everything's got to be painfully obvious. But this is about two things being true. This wanton murder was the worst of us, and it made change of a system that needs it harder. Why? Because, yeah, there's attention on the problem, but people knew, and what was surrendered is what matters. Moral high ground. Because now the companies aren't focused. They're focused on what's being done to them, right? CEOs all over the country are beefing up security. They're focused on that instead of looking at what they are doing to everyone else. Because whatever they're doing, you lose high ground when someone assassinates a member of their field. So despite what this punk did, or more specifically, in spite of his wrongful act, we should try to do what is right, which is to call out that this CEO was the opposite of his assassin. He made it on his own, through the ranks, without privilege, to ascend to a very high place in society. That is the dream. This kid was the opposite. His family made generational wealth off of the healthcare business, and then he becomes a righteous warrior? I don't believe it. But I'll tell you what I do believe. I have been covering what insurers do to the rest of us that is wrong for decades. You can still find the stories on the internet. I just did it before the show. Story after story of device and technique and sneaky, all before social media. And you know what? Little has changed for the better, and we can prove it. Our series will begin once again. That was started 20 years ago, and I'm telling you now, we are going to blow up the same problems and deceptions. And we're going to start tonight by laying out what is happening in healthcare that makes so many people rejoice at the assassination of one of the main players. Remember, two things are true here. The killer is dead wrong and made it easier for companies to hide. And many of us have been wronged by these same companies, and some wound up dead. Both matter. Now, before we get to that tonight, we have another story, a major story that is about another hidden truth. There are a lot more things flying in the skies around us, and many know it. The questions are growing, but the answers are slow in coming. And this isn't about ignorance. It's about arrogance, an arrogance that fuels a lack of transparency. The government knows what is in the sky, and they know what is us and what is not us. And they know what we should be worried about. Which part knows? Depends on who you ask. Are they communicating with members of Congress? Clearly not enough. Why not? Now, those are the real questions. And I have guests tonight who will explain why this is the case and what has to happen to get those answers. Because let me tell you something. This answer from the National Security Council spokesman is unacceptable.
No indication at this time that it's a foreign adversary or a foreign actor. The FBI is looking at this. DOJ is looking at this. I know the Department of Defense. I can't tell you definitively exactly what we're talking about here. In some cases, the investigation has led to a revelation that it's actually manned aircraft and not drones at all.
Who's that knocking on the door? Oh, don't worry, it's not a monster. How do you know? Who is it then? You see what I'm saying? Unsatisfying. Now, he mentioned foreign adversary because a member of Congress said that high sources in the government told him they may be from Iran. Now, everyone I spoke to today, drones with that kind of range that weren't launched from nearby, doubtful. But then what are they? You see, the problem with the spokesman is he's too nonchalant. He's clearly not worried. If he isn't worried, it's because he knows things. But he isn't saying how he knows what they are not, and that's the problem. For instance, perhaps we're not shooting whatever these things are down because we're the ones flying them. Either way, people are worried. And last time I checked, government is tasked with allaying and explaining, not adding to confusion and fear. The latest reporting is about New Jersey, some seeing car-sized drones. But that's not the only state. Heck, I see them all the time, not the size of cars, but clearly we are in a new era and we need answers. So what do you say? Let's get after it. We have Representative Anna Paulina Luna. She is on the House Oversight Committee, which held hearings on UFOs and UAPs, and to be honest, one of the few who took this seriously early. We have Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, who specializes in unidentified flying objects, and Ryan Graves, former Navy pilot turned UFO whistleblower. Thank you to each and all. And just quickly, does anybody believe that I have it wrong and that this is some great mystery that nobody knows any of the answers to? All right, good. I'll start with you, Representative. How do you explain how you keep hearing that there are divisions of government that are involved in different types of undertakings, but they can't come clean, even with members of Congress, even with a special subcommittee, about what is in the air over New Jersey and elsewhere?
Look, it's unacceptable, and for them to undermine Representative Andrews' credibility in saying that he's talking to people that he does believe that these are drones from other nefarious foreign actors. I mean, it just goes to show, obviously they're checked out before the holidays and they know that they're leaving office, and so I believe that they're not really interested in finding out what's happening. And it's the unfortunate truth of what happens in Washington, especially when there's a new incoming administration. But to be clear, what we're seeing right now happening, not just in the drone sphere, but I think on the topic of UAPs, is you're right. There has been a change in technology. And also with the fact that people can now record, you have devices, they can't really hide it anymore. So I think the Pentagon and the government as a whole is looking at how to address this to the American people. But there's no doubt in my mind that Representative Andrew was telling the truth. It's very likely that these are drones from foreign adversary. And if you don't believe that the U.S. government would cover something up, just look at how they responded with the Chinese spy balloon.
No, that's a good point. And look, you know this. You're in Florida. Mellon knows this. Graves knows this. A lot of these drones, like the ones we're showing right now, you see navigation lights on them. You see a red and a green. You know this from boating and down, so they have the same things. Aircraft are the same thing that boats do. They have a red and a green. So it's not like they're from some outer atmosphere. Let me start with you, Mr. Mellon. Do you believe that there are more and that it's understood and explainable?
I believe there are more. I think it's important for people to understand that this has been going on since at least 2017. Which is to say these smaller, brightly lit, drone-like vehicles violating restricted U.S. military airspace in sensitive areas around nuclear power facilities, nuclear weapons storage facilities. A year ago today, roughly, Langley Air Force Base was taken offline by drones. And that continued that was exactly a year ago this month. And that was about a year after there was a similar sort of pattern in the western United States for several months near some of our ICBM fields. So it's troubling that after all this time, we still haven't captured any of these things. We still haven't brought them down.
Do we know that?
Where they're coming from. We are really in a position of ignorance here, and hopefully this will maybe at long last, after all these prior events and the Chinese balloon, get some people to take a hard look at what do we need to do to get our hands on one of these things so we can get to the bottom of this.
Right. I mean, look, Chris, you know better than I do, but I don't know that they haven't gotten any of them. I would read it another way, just as somebody who's been in the business of deception detection for 25 years, that, that calmness of them being not concerned about it is usually a function of having information. And Ryan, you and I have talked many times about how many stories you've heard about what they did take down or what they found on the ground, and programs that use a lot of money to use special operators to go and recover these things. But SUV-sized drones, I can't find those on the commercial market. I've been looking for days. How do you explain that part? You think people just get the size wrong, Ryan?
Well, there always is some uncertainty when it comes to judging a moving object in the sky, especially at night and especially as a single source of light. But these things appear to be close enough to the ground where I think I have pretty high confidence in the size predictions that they're estimating, give or take 20%. But, these sizes and these types of behaviors are something that we've seen and we've talked about, Chris, over the years, starting at Virginia Beach, working its way further north into the Langley area, and perhaps now into New Jersey. I don't think we can conclusively say that they're inherently linked necessarily, but with the mixed messages that we're getting between the legislative branch and between the executive branch, it really feels like the Biden administration is gaslighting us on the seriousness of this issue.
Yeah, and I want the representative to hear you guys. Let me come back to Chris real quick, and then I'm going to go to the representative about what we're going to do about this, because she's the one with the power to get some accountability and some answers. Chris, what point do you want to make about that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand, you were talking about maybe we have got our hands on some of these, maybe we do know what they are. I've been in touch with several administration officials today and law enforcement officials who are involved in this case, and I hear all of them say, we have no idea where these things are coming from or what they are. That's an astonishing revelation after all this time. And when you look at what's happening in the Ukraine and the power that drones can wield in, the damage they can inflict, we absolutely should be very concerned that so many of these things are flying around seemingly without any constraint, and none of our anti-drone systems have been working.
Right. That's the concern, is the detection and the systems they're supposed to have, Representative, to deal with this. There seem to be more and more. And I'm not talking about the small ones that frustrate guys like me when I'm fishing because they're guys spying on what we're using over my boat, or even the little ones that they're using in Ukraine, that they're just flying into areas and having them explode. These are bigger, they're more sophisticated, and they're in places that are invading people's privacy, and some of it is sensitive space. What are you going to do about it?
I think that in general, once President Trump gets back in, I think that they need to, via executive order, and then also have a talk probably with the Joint Chiefs, that if you have something of this size and magnitude that's going into restricted airspace, it should be an automatic shoot down notice, meaning that, there is no questions asked, you go and you get it. And I think part of the issues that we saw with what happened with the Chinese spy balloon that traversed literally the United States, and then, there was rumors that it was collecting information, all of that. The point is that it should have been taken down day one. They should not have allowed that to occur. So I think that's the first part. The second part is, though, from a government perspective, is, we keep funding the DOD, we keep funding studies and programs, but we really need to focus on what we can do to come up with radar systems that can get to detect this, because, frankly, I think we're used to more of an ancient way of warfare, and that, we're looking at picking up large aircraft versus some of these drones that might be smaller and also might be flying at lower airspaces. So, it's going to be a lot to unpack there, but I do think it's ridiculous that they're not shooting these things down, or at least trying to capture them to study them, and then that they would gaslight Americans. You can clearly see that that's a drone. So to say otherwise is it's a farce.
Well, look, you're the one with the science background, not me. So figuring out what the level of sophistication is that's needed with the systems, I get that part. I have a much more basic complaint, which is just the transparency of it. Because, one thing is over military areas. Yeah, great, you can shoot them down. You can't when it's over my house. And, people are watching them, and it's really invading everywhere. And it's been very interesting how you have a great opportunity with the new administration, but also with DOGE. They're looking to cut something that I've never seen touched in all the years. Luna, I didn't always look like this. You know what I mean? Like, I started this business a long time ago, and we have always been talking about the same sacred cow, the defense budget, the security budget. And if you guys are going to really open the books on that and look at it, they want the money. They're going to have to talk about why they need it. And that's an opportunity, and I hope you guys take it. And you always have a platform here, as does Chris, as does Ryan, to talk about what we're learning and what we still need to know. Thank you for joining us, each and all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, Representative. Thank you, fellas. 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Look, let's just be clear. I'm not talking about little green men in a box in the basement, okay? If that exists, great to see it. This is about transparency of what they know. I'm talking about little green and red lights in the sky, okay? Somebody put those on there. That was a commercially assembled vehicle that's up there. Where are the answers? Now, another tough topic. The assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was wrong on a million different levels. And the most frustrating part, outside of what it means to his family, is that I'm telling you, it just lost ground in changing what needs to be changed. So, despite it, let's take a look at what's happening in this industry that literally has people rejoicing that one within its ranks is dead. They're doing things you need to know about, and the question is what do we do about it? Two men on the inside. Next. Mistake. This assassination exposed two problems. We have a problem with health care. It's scary enough that even President-elect Trump doesn't put the names of those big insurers in his mouth when he's talking about what to disrupt. Think about it. What else did the murder of 50-year-old Brian Thompson expose? A rage that is evidence of a new fundamentalism that's taking root here. You see it on campus. You saw it during riots in the streets. Too many are too happy to act like what they say they oppose. I only wish on social media they had to use their real names, because they sound just like the Islamist sympathizers I've been chased by over the years. Here's just a small sample of it. Here, play it.
Man was shot in broad daylight. I'd like to feel remorse, but he hasn't met his deductible yet.
I'm one of those people who's really excited about Brian Thompson, the CEO, getting shot and killed.
And I know that some people are going to be like, he had a family and stuff like that. Yeah, so did the other millions of people who have United Healthcare.
The violence of this healthcare system, this grotesque for-profit healthcare system that acts as a mafia, no pun intended, sorry, Luigi, that is the issue.
Of course, you got to make the mafia joke about the Italian guy, right? See, that's kind of part of it. Like, that's cool, that's okay, that kind of bigotry. But yet you're this high ethical person, right? Like, you want industry to behave a certain way. The hypocrisy is staggering. I'm surprised they all didn't have keffiyehs on, right? Because I guarantee you there's overlap between them and the people who say that Hamas is freedom fighters. There is this affinity for the oppressed that we have in our society that is something we got to deal with, okay? They're just selling merch. Of course people are going to take advantage. That's what social media is all about. But I'm telling you what the real problem is here, is that despite these people and what they're saying, you do have to look. I don't know that any of them, they're so young, I don't even know what bills they're paying yet, but there is a problem. And I've been transparent. I don't talk about myself that often on the show, but my family is this close to litigation against an insurance company right now for refusing a surgery that, thank God, I can pick it up if I have to. But a surgery for one of my kids that now they're saying they don't have to pay for, we're talking about a lot of money. And that's me. I'm one of the lucky ones. Healthcare companies should be put under the light of exacting scrutiny. They have deserved it for a long time. I'm telling you, this assassination makes it less likely, not more. But I'm saying let's have the right conversation anyway, even though they are right to say right now, you're talking about us. This guy just assassinated us. We need to protect ourselves. These people are crazy. Joining me now to have the right conversation, Lauren Adler, Associate Director of the Center on Health Policy at Brookings Institute, and David McNichols, former CEO at Aetna. Good to have you both. Now, look, on the security side, David, you see everybody putting security teams around them. Have you heard discussion? Look, there's no justifying what the guy did. Is the industry looking at itself at all, or just looking at the external threat right now?
I think the honest answer is it's both. And so, sort of the first and core question to me, Chris, is what did we just witness with Brian Thompson's murder? Is it a one-off by somebody that was disgruntled? Is it a political statement against capitalism and big business? Is it a combination of both, or is it something completely different? I don't think we know all of the facts yet. But here's what we do know, and that is every one of the health insurance companies is facing, since Brian's murder, additional threats, much more vocal and pointed threats. And so every one of the insurers is taking a very deep look at their policies around security. And that involves a whole bunch of things. But no, it's happening everywhere, and they're taking a hard look, and they're making changes to what they do.
Right. The problem is, it's not a problem. They should keep themselves safe. Fine. But Lauren, the problem is they need to apply that scrutiny to the policies that have absolutely been injurious to people they're supposed to be taking care of. Whether you're looking at denials in the process where they're judge and jury, where you're looking at billing, where you're looking at a lack of transparency in pricing and policy that no other industry gets away with, and no other industry has this kind of control over what matters most, which is, of course, our health. What do you see in the state of play within this industry in terms of practices that are essentially poisonous?
Sure. So I think there's sort of two. Go
ahead, Lauren.
Sorry. There's sort of two sides of it, right? I mean, I think there's been just a bubbling frustration with the growing use of utilization management tools, whether that's denying needed care, prior authorizations. And look, obviously some level of utilization management is needed, right? You can't have just sort of willy-nilly costs growing out of control. But fundamentally, in every country has some form of utilization management. But often this really does delay needed care, as your example, gets at, right? There is really needed care here. And also, right, this is adding a lot of hassle costs to patients who are, even in the cases where you get the denial overturned in the end, right? This is trying to get patients to give up, trying to get doctors and hospitals adding a lot of paperwork burden on them, right? There's a survey recently that in individual health insurance plans, 17% of in-network claims are denied initially, right? That is just a very large number, and most of them aren't even appealed because most of the times, if it's a small dollar amount, patients may just eat it, right? Those are, right, insurers do benefit from throwing sand in the gears of this process. And right, there's still faxes being sent back and forth or requiring doctors' offices to send faxes, right? That isn't trying to solve this in a, quick and timely manner. There's just a real lack of standardization and a real lack of timeliness in some of these processes, even if there is some need for, at some level.
But David, they do it because they can, right? I mean, other than the ACA forcing pre-existing conditions into the mix, nobody's really messed with this industry. And even Trump, the great disruptor, of all the things that he wants to change about what's putting a burden on the working man and woman, he never mentions you guys.
Yeah. Chris, I think that's fair. The whole conversation around denial and denial management is something that needs much more transparency. There's no doubt about it. But the number that gets thrown around of United denying 32% of claims, there are a lot of reasons why claims get denied. And I've been doing it. I've been in this business for 25 years. And so, sometimes there isn't coverage. Sometimes there are claims for things that aren't covered. Sometimes it's a request for additional information. And in truth, when you get past the first denial, more than 80% of the claims ultimately do get paid. And so the claim of yours that didn't get paid, the surgery, Chris, that's troubling. I'd love to know the details about it and how to fix it. But I think the biggest problem for the industry is it is a very complicated business, and there are a lot of stakeholders.
But they made it complicated. They made it complicated, David. When they do this kind of stuff with cars, you don't think they know what to cover and not cover and for how long when it comes to warranties? They know, and that's frustrating. Yeah. But it's not my kid. It's not my life. It's not the drugs that I need. It's not the procedures that keep me able to live my life. That's what makes this industry different. So even if it's only doing what others do, and I don't even think that's true. I think that you guys have created your own culture of how to increase profitability. It would still be a problem. I just don't know what can be done about it, especially if the industry doesn't feel like policing itself.
Yeah, so it's also the most governed industry in America, and so the regulatory environment is very stringent, and so CMS is all over what we do, and a lot of the work that happens, including that deal with Anthem last week around anesthesia coverage, that was about enforcing CMS policies, not a change in anesthesia, and they just did a really poor job of communicating that whole deal. But I'll tell you, most of the healthcare executives get up every day focused on two things. How do we keep healthcare affordable? And two, how do we improve quality? Because that's how we win new business. They increase profits more from growth than they do from squeezing the dollars.
But David, I'm not looking. Look, we need the industry, okay? We can talk about how it is and what the fundamental systemic dynamics are and what that yields. That's fine, but it's above my pay grade. But the idea that anybody who's publicly traded doesn't wake up thinking about their shareholders is nonsense. That's what keeps you in the job. And that's what you guys are about. Now, Lauren, give us an end note on what needs to happen next in terms of, if you want to focus, if you want to try to distill something that can make any of this worthwhile, never to Thompson's family, what needs to be looked at first and most?
Sure. So, I mean, we've glossed over here, right? The other big issue you raised is the cost of care. And that really isn't, that's not predominantly insurance companies, right? That is the high cost of healthcare goods and services. And, primarily we're talking about hospitals. And that's how, that is where the U.S. is an outlier to the rest of the world, right? Out-of-pocket costs as a share of total healthcare costs in this country are pretty in line with other developed countries, but it's just the pie is a lot larger in the U.S., so out-of-pocket costs are a lot higher in the U.S., and that's why, we're average household spending like 20% of their income is going towards healthcare spending, and that number is more like 10% in other countries. So I do think that, the elephant in the room is still fundamentally the cost of care and hospitals, but I do think there is a lot that can be done to standardize a lot of these prior authorization processes. And I don't think you can count on the industry to police itself. This is where further regulation and telling them exactly how the sort of back and forth between the hospital or doctor and the insurance company needs to go for these denials and prior auths. Fundamentally, that's needed to come from the government.
I did an investigation a million years ago about a charitable hospital and what it means to be a charitable hospital. And it turned out that most of the care that they called charity was unreclaimed debt. That after they chased people and put all kinds of watchdogs on them and ruined their credit rating, they'd write off whatever they didn't get paid back as charity. These are the kinds of things that are maddening to people with something that matters so much. We need the industry, but we need it to be better than it is. David McNichols, you are always welcome here to make the case. Lauren Adler, we're going to continue this conversation as we start our reporting again. Thank you very much. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Early gift to you for Christmas. Bill O'Reilly is here, and he wants to explain why he believes that this story about the CEO's assassination is being covered the way it is, and what the media's hand is in this. And also, O'Reilly says, what is this about the UAPs? I've seen them. I've seen them at my house. In fact, there's a rumor he may have come out of one. Next. The assassination and the case of Daniel Penny, the guy who restrained Jordan Neely on the subway. Neely wound up dying. They really are two looks at who we're becoming in society. So I wanted Bill O'Reilly to talk about these big questions, how he sees it, and what matters most. It's good to see you. Early Happy Christmas. So, how do you see this fervor around the assassination?
Well, people are doing what they usually do. They're trying to exploit a murder for political gain. Hello, Senator Elizabeth Warren. And so that the...
How so?
Well, she's coming out and going, private health care is the devil and it doesn't work, and we have to have government-run health care. That's one of her big things. Mm-hmm. And, it's always prefaced with, we're sorry the guy's dead in the street, but... There's always the but, all right? It's an evil industry, and we got to do something about it, which is true, by the way. The insurance industry in America is like the food industry. Powerful, lots of money going into the politicians' pockets to run for re-election. So you don't get reform. What people don't understand is the insurance agencies are run by the states, not the feds. All right, so in New York, if you have a beef, you got to go to Albany, which I would rather go to Damascus, Syria, at this point, than to go to Albany. And you can sit there and go, look, you got to pay my claim. For 30 years, I've been paying the premiums, and now they're jobbing me. And the guy goes, okay, I'll look into it. I'd rather go to Damascus. I'd rather be with whoever's running that country. And you'd get your insurance claim paid faster in Syria than you will in New York. They want the money. And the government doesn't crack down because the lobbyist money is tremendous. The food industry won't take the sugar out of everything, which is killing everybody, which is making the insurance rates higher. And they won't even put a warning. If you drink 8 Sprites a day, you're going to die. Your limbs will fall off. Just put the warning on there. All right? No. Tobacco, yeah. Not sugar, and which is more dangerous? Sugar. Okay. So when you start there, you know you're in a corrupt system. And the working Americans watching their car and house premiums go, I can't afford it. That's why Biden lost. Because there's no explanation. I called my Allstate agent. I said, what? You're tripling my car insurance. I don't have any claims. I drive 22 miles an hour. Because if you drive any more than 25, you get a $300 ticket in New York because they're stealing your money. I can't drive any more than 25 miles. Why am I paying 3 times as much? Well, we've had a storm coming out of Cabo, you know. So working men and women are getting killed here. The problem is these are small ball compared to Israel, Hamas, Ukraine, high prices, and nobody's looking at it. And so it never gets solved. And so the ideologues use this murder, all right, to try to highlight what's wrong. You need strict oversight on the insurance companies, statewide. That's the solution to the problem.
What do you make of what I define as a new fundamentalism? Whether it's this assassin here, the kids in the kafiyas on campus, these people, this generation that is appropriating oppression that they see in the world around them, even if it's not their lived experience. I mean, this kid was an animal of privilege. His family made millions off the healthcare business. They run nursing homes.
This kid is mentally ill.
You do? You see, I don't know yet.
Oh, you haven't? Did you see when they took him into custody in Altoona?
You can be bad and be ranting and raving and not be sick.
Kid's mentally ill. You know, if you read Confronting the Presidents, all the assassins, all of them mentally ill, including Booth.
Okay. And what do you say about the people celebrating what he did? Are they all mentally ill?
No, but that's minuscule. I mean, the media loves the story.
I've never seen this many react this way to a murderer.
On TikTok?
True.
I mean, it's
true
a
on social media.
All right, just go into any sanitarium and you're going to have that. It's not a mass movement, but the media blows it up. Like every lefty is doing this. They're not. This is maybe a point of 1%, but they're on TikTok. And you see them. 10 years ago, these people would have never gotten any recognition at all.
Did you feel the same way about the campus demonstrations? We talked about them.
I did.
That's a small percentage of people.
Very small. But they take over, and then people sitting at home go, oh, this must be very common. It's not like Vietnam. It's not close to that. All right? So perspective, which is sorely lacking in the American journalism community, is gone. So I'm not worried about the real loons. What I am worried about is problem after problem after problem doesn't get addressed. Like the drones. I had a drone in my backyard, okay? And then, I said, what's this? And then I figure out that Hochul's taxing the drones, okay? New York State wants to tax the drones. So they're trying to keep mileage on how many, and then congestion drone pricing. We're going to have that here. Did you know that? No, it's $30 if a drone wants to fly over Manhattan. And this is good. They want that in Albany because they're stealing our money. But I saw a drone. I live on the Long Island Sound, and there's this drone.
Oh, you saw it at that house. I was thinking where I fish because there are people using drones all over.
I was in Nassau County. And so then you ask the pinheads, what is this? And I go, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Do we ever get a cogent explanation of the balloons from China?
Never.
There's balloons everywhere. All right? Guys are dropping egg rolls from the balloons. Right. I think it's China. Okay? What? Here comes egg foo-young.
We don't know.
Right?
We got the manifesto from the CEO assassin. We don't have it from the guy who shot at Trump.
Well, you'll get that.
There is an unevenness, you know.
Secret Service is working on it. They type very slowly, one finger
at a time.
Yeah, but they gotta come out. The point of the matter is that there should be someone in the federal government, in the Biden administration, that says, look, this is what we think it is. That's all.
Right. And here's how we know what it isn't, by the way. You know, Kirby came out today. And look, I've had good experience with him. I haven't had him be...
But
I haven't had him be like the kind of willful lying that we often see. And him saying, look, I don't think it's Iran. We don't worry about that. Why? Why aren't you worried? I mean, I really believe that's their job.
Not Iran.
Well, I don't think it is either, but I want to know why they think that.
But the overarch is everybody in the Biden White House wants to go home for Christmas forever.
Yeah.
All right, they're not locked in. They're gunned. All right? But the public is owed an explanation.
Yeah.
When there are UFOs in your backyard. Right? And if they go to Wyoming, they're going to shoot these people. the drones. They're going to pop them. And it gets hysterical because the media whips it up. Oh, what could it be? What could it be? You know, and everybody's going, oh, it's a drone. It's probably a private person, all right? Some
of them are big, though, Bill. You can't buy them on the commercial market.
Okay, but I don't think it's Iran or Uganda or anybody like that. I could be wrong, but I don't want to speculate. But the Biden administration should put somebody out there, right? This is what we think it is.
They should get answers. They've been ducking it for years. Do you want to stay and do calls, or do you got a dinner?
Yeah, we'll do some calls.
All right. Let's take a break. We got Bill here. Might as well use him, right? You got to exploit opportunities when you find them. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Have your say with the big man. 844-968-7720. All right, Dusty, it's one of your favorite people and me. Do you have calls?
I just want to thank my favorite person.
Look at the mug.
Thanking my favorite person, not you.
Not woke.
What did you get me for Christmas? Nothing,
I
Chris
am
Cuomo.
the gift. I am the gift.
What did Bill O'Reilly give me? The best mug I have ever wrapped my hands around.
BillO'Reilly.com's got him.
Anyway, let's get to calls. Andrew from Paramus, New Jersey.
What's your question, sir?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, I appreciate you giving me the time. I want to talk about accountability. At the end of the day, there's just never any accountability for government. They work for us, the American people, but they only just satisfy their own self-interest. They're just looking to protect their jobs and their salaries. I grew up, I was in college during 9/11. We said never again would our security be compromised. Look at what's happening over the skies of Jersey. I have family and friends that live there now. We're being deceived by government officials. They know things they're not sharing with us. And I can go on with the COVID lies, the vaccines, Biden's mental health, the media trying to censor things. Like, at what point do we get answers? And that's why guys like this United Healthcare killer went on and became a vigilante. It's not right, but people don't trust the system anymore, so they're trying to take it in their hands. How do we fix this?
Well, number one, you can't be violent ever. Number two, you're right, there isn't accountability, and they don't care about you in Paramus, New Jersey at all. Number three, never say at the end of the day again. And number four, there's really no solution other than to make your opinion known. Because you're right. They don't, when you have a president who's almost assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania, and we still don't know anything about the guy who pulled the trigger after all this time, there's a problem. Mm-hmm. But there's nobody that's looking at solving the problem. We can expose it, but we can't solve it. We don't have the power.
Right. But Andrew and others can reward people who are trying to get it done, who are trying to do better. And that's one of the choices he can make. Only caution I would give you is don't throw everything that's unknown in the same bucket, okay? The pandemic should be reviewed. The policies should be reviewed. But the idea that everything that was done there is the same like it is with the drones, where they know things and they just don't want to tell you, I don't believe that. So accountability matters. Often people just mean revenge by that, and that doesn't get you to a better place. Another call?
Oh, yeah, lots of calls tonight, lots. We're going to go to Sanjeev from Maryland.
What's your question, sir?
Hey, so how do you view the younger generation's reaction to the assassin and kind of bringing this guy up and viewing him as sort of a hero?
That's ridiculous. I mean, anybody making a hero out of a murderer has got an emotional problem. And I say that literally. I mean, murder is murder. You don't take a human life. And there's no justification for it. So that's why I'm saying that these people on TikTok and the other social media, 10 years ago, we never would have heard them. But now they get a forum because the media knows it can drive these kinds of stories and people will pay attention to that.
Yeah.
The media doesn't care. The media is just as bad as the politicians. They don't care about the folks. They just want ratings. They want money. I hate to be so cynical, particularly 2 weeks before Christmas, but we need to have a government reform agency, and we have to have people that care about us, and
it has to be rewarded. You got to be rewarded for doing the right thing in government. We pick at them, that's the job. But you got to celebrate the successes and show who's doing things that matter also. Now, look, magnified minorities are a real thing. to Bill's point about social media. We wouldn't have heard them 10 years ago. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Not necessarily.
No, it
depends. Well, it depends on how many and why.
Lunacy that we should not be embracing.
Yes, I agree. Okay. And people take advantage of it. But two things can be true, right? There are a lot of people with grievance. What bothers me about young people is that I wish they had reason to believe in something that's positive, instead of appropriating oppression that is not their lived experience. You're not going to tell me that a 20-something-year-old knows how hard health insurance is as we do, when we put our kids through it and we've been, screwed 50 different times by different companies. So they're appropriating this like they did on campus, getting confused about who's the good guy and who's the bad guy when it comes to a terror organization and anyone else. Next call.
It's called Jane from Virginia.
Jane, sounds like a Netflix show. What's your question?
My question is, how come every time Bill O'Reilly comes on, all he does is cut down Joe Biden? He cut down Elizabeth Warren right away. Why don't you just get to the point?
The point is, Joe Biden's incompetent and Elizabeth Warren is a crazy socialist. That's the point. So what am I supposed to do?
You should say what you believe, which is
and
what you
do.
do.
And I can back it up 50 different ways.
Listen, and that's what the conversation is about. Look, here's my concern for you. You have to be very careful that you just don't keep a diet of what you agree with, okay? Bill and I often disagree about things. How we disagree, I think, is way more important than what the substance of the disagreement is, because you got to be able to have conversations. He believes what he believes about Biden and Warren, and he will talk about it in rational, not I don't like them, not, he's stupid, she's ugly. That's the level of discourse we got to get away from. You don't want to just listen to people who you agree with. Why does he just come down on and cut down Biden? Because he's got criticisms of them. Are they good or are they bad? We'll discuss it. Warren, why is she saying this is a time to talk about how to change the system? You got to never reward people for doing the wrong thing. So the conversation is what matters. That's not weakness, it's strength. It's easier to just stay in your silo. I think it's getting us to a worse place. Next.
No more next. No more calls. I just want to thank you again, Mr. O'Reilly, because it is definitely...
You're so easily bought.
So easily bought. How do you know? You never bought me anything.
What?
You never bought me a thing.
Well, hold on.
He was supposed to send me to a Nick game for my birthday.
No, that's not true. I never agreed to that.
And yes, you did.
I never agreed to that.
Yes, you did.
Never agreed to that. And I bought you very expensive spa certificates.
No, you bought me a vacuum
cleaner. And let me tell you, it's not easy
broke.
to find a spa that will accept her.
Two things can be true at once.
That is true.
Yeah. Two things. This is one of his favorites. Two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, you're a cheap frump.
No.
Okay, that's true. Okay, that's right. And number two, I'm much better dressed than him. So that's
you just have
a
tie on.
True at the same time.
You have a tie on that goes with nothing else.
I'm wrapping the segment.
See the little black and the
We'll be
jersey?
right back.
Doesn't work.
We'll be right back.
Doesn't work.
I'm wrapping the segment.
You're done. This is your last show, by the way. I hope
Merry
you enjoyed
Christmas.
We'll be right back.